well over 30,000 deaths occur on our roadways a year. 30,000 of them. And the vast majority of them, the estimates are somewhere between, the high 80s to the high 90 percentile. I just threw 95% up there. The vast majority of them are due because of human error. Something we did caused that accident. And there's 30,000 of them. If technology is there to help prevent some of these, we owe it to ourselves to start implementing it. We, government, need to work very closely with industry because there needs to be regulations, and also, as this technology comes forth, when something does happen, if there is an accident or when there is an accident, the public will look to us as regulators and question us as to why certain things weren't regulated. And so we need to work very closely with the industry and ensure that we put forth sound regulations that still keep the public safe and that also allows for the technology to advance. The technology is advancing a lot faster than we thought. We were thinking that this technology is going to come to fruition a number of years down the road. And what we're finding is that it's the opposite. The technology is here. It's here and it's going to hit us. And as administrators, we need to be ready for this because it's going to change the way we do business. So there's a lot of these different questions that pop up as these regulations are being developed, and we are having to deal with it now within California. There are 3 states that have legislation passed to allow for the testing: California, Nevada, and Florida. And we're working to have ours in place by the deadline. To do that, we formed a statewide steering committee made up of our sister agencies. Obviously, the Highway Patrol is involved, our Department of Insurance, our Office of Traffic Safety, our Department of Transportation. And then typically these type of automotive safety features have been regulated by NHTSA. And we have NHTSA on our steering committee. As NHTSA gears up to begin developing regulations, they are involved in what we're doing in California, and we're helping and we are keeping them informed in terms of what we are doing. So the way that we're doing this is, as you saw in the first slide, we need to have regulations in place by January 2015. Little less than a year and a half from now. And so we decided to break up the regulations into 2 phases. The first phase is to allow for the testing of these vehicles on our public roadways. This is to allow the manufacturers to actually test on our roadways. We're going to have those regulations done by the end of this calendar year. The second set is to allow for the operation of these vehicles on California public roadways by you and I. So that set of regulations is going to be done by January 2015. So we're going to have 2 sets. We're finishing that first set, and a draft of it is right over here. If any of you manufacturers want to see it, just kidding. And we're moving forward.
Automated vehicles are those in which some aspect of safety critical function, steering, throttle, or braking, occur without direct driver input. I apologize for reading that kind of bullet. I tend not to read bullets, but that in a definition sense, that's the one that NHTSA operates from, at least at this point. There are 4 levels of automation, 5 if you count level 0. I'm going to go through them briefly here. Most of you familiar with level 0, this is no automation. This is not even cruise control. This is what most of you have spent probably the large percentage of your driving lives, either at level 0 or level 1. And level 1, again, is with function-specific automation. Driver had the overall control. Typically, this involves one area in which a function of the vehicle's operation is automated. So cruise control is a good example. All right? So, but the important part, it can have multiple areas in which it can automate a function, but they don't operate simultaneously, they operate independently. Level 2, combined function automation. Let me just say this as well about our levels. We fully understand that saying level 0 through 4 and a lovely phrase like combined function automation is not the phrase that you're going to put on the MSRP sticker on the vehicle. Does somebody buy the level 2 combined function automated vehicle? These will evolve into real more marketable terms and phrasing, but as we develop our kind of understanding in this key area of development with the technology, we really kind of laid out a model here, a scale in which it relates to and delineates the driver's interaction with the vehicle. And so level 2, the combined function automation, shared authority, automated at least 2 primary control functions, and as Bernardo mentioned, this already exists out there. And this would, the easiest example is having cruise control or adaptive cruise control in particular. Adaptive cruise control is one in which it not only sets the throttle, but it also maintains a certain specified headway automatically. And so combine that with lane centering or lane keeping technology, there you can take your hands and your feet off the steering wheel and pedals. The key part here in how the driver relates to the vehicle for level 2 is the driver must be in the loop. Maybe not in terms of direct control, not having control over steering or throttle or braking, but ready to take over as soon as needed. And so that's why a driver is expected to be available at all times, in particular without much notice to have to take over. Level 3 is the next step, and this is closer to what Bosch has and what Google has. Limited self-driving automation, and this is the driver can relinquish control to the vehicle under certain conditions, either traffic or environment. And the driver expected to be available for occasional control. This is important. The distinction between level 2 and level 3 and how the driver interacts with the vehicle is that in level 3, there is the greater transition time afforded by the vehicle to the driver. So whereas in level 2, you might be able to take your hands off the wheel and your feet off the pedals, you need to be ready to take over at a moment's notice. Level 3, perhaps you're reading a book, perhaps you're otherwise occupied, but the vehicle will be able to give you ample time to transition to control. It won't just say immediately take control. There's a system problem, but it can actually have the ability, whether there's a specific condition in the environment or there's a malfunction in the technology, it can give you ample warning and notice that the driver needs to take control. All right, level 4, as mentioned, this is kind of the ultimate version of automation. I think perhaps, in my own feeling, is that this will be part of the public relations aspect, is that the common notion of an automated vehicle is level 4. That you just say, okay, drive me to work. And I get to sit back like George Jetson and just read the paper or what have you. Perhaps that will come to fruition one day. That is the part we do believe is still quite a ways out. That is a very, very challenging problem. There's a lot of aspects to that. But it is important to include it in our scale. And again, responsibility for safe operation rests solely on the automated vehicle system. To be honest, as a regulatory agency, we are often come across and portrayed and perhaps are indeed at times a wet blanket on new technologies and new developments. And we tend to be very data-driven, so we really focus on crashes and the technologies, and in something like this, as a new frontier, we like to proceed with caution to make sure that all the ducks are in a row. There's a lot of very complicated issues that come along with this topic of automated vehicles. But there is tremendous upside, and we are fully supportive of that.
The level of excitement is probably high here now, but then I'm sure some of you, if not all, are thinking about some of the challenges, especially when it comes to transition of what we have today until when we get to level 4 automation that NHTSA has defined. So we've already talked about safety, and the number of fatalities and all that, and we're hoping that connected and autonomous vehicles both would help us decrease the number of fatalities. That's an obvious benefit. Accessibility for those who cannot drive currently is definitely another plus of autonomous vehicles, and by that I mean people with disabilities, elderly, and in some cases even kids. Mobility, we're hoping that congestion would improve, flow and operation would be much better than what we see today, especially in our urban areas. And then efficiency. If we are really, when we get to level 4 automation and we don't need to have any control over our vehicles, then what are the things that we can do as we are driving? So that would definitely, if I can sit in my vehicle and ride for an hour and do work or take care of errands, then that will definitely add. That's one way that we can think of adding to the level of efficiency that we have today. So with all that, the goal is to reduce the cost of transportation, and that cost would include cost of time, fuel, health, mortality, environmental damages. But then with any new technology or invention comes challenges, and here, I categorized the challenges into technology challenges and deployment and adoption challenges. And some of the lists that we have seen, especially the one that Bernard showed earlier, sort of had a mix of these challenges, both technology and deployment and adoption challenges. And it's probably worth mentioning here that at Carnegie Mellon, researchers at Robotics Institute have been working on the technology challenges and issues for over a decade, definitely closer to 2 decades now. And it's recently with this PennDOT project and a couple of other projects that we are involved with, we are also focusing on the deployment and adoption challenges of autonomous and connected vehicles. And I'm going to be focusing on that a little more than what we've seen so far. So focusing a little more on the policy issues. Liability was mentioned earlier. With increased amount of safety, obviously, comes liability issues. If we get into a car accident, we're driving our autonomous vehicles, and we get into an accident for whatever reason, who is at fault? Insurance companies are working on that, I know. People in different institutions are working on it. So that's definitely a major policy challenge. Regulatory issues, standards, signages, educations, workforce training, inspections, driver licensing, the list goes on and on. If we issue driver's licenses for our individuals to drive these autonomous vehicles, what's going to happen to our vision tests? That's just one example. Rebound effects. This, in my opinion, is a very interesting policy issue. Claims are out there that connected and autonomous vehicles both will reduce congestion. Well, we've already talked about this new demand for autonomous vehicles from those with disabilities and those who cannot currently drive. With the use of autonomous vehicles, there will be this additional demand added to our current level of congestion. So at what level of, at what level within the next 5 years, 10 years, 30 years, we'll see the improvements in congestion, if at all? Our preliminary results are showing right now that we don't see improvements in congestion not until we get to level 3. So level 1 and 2 are not going to probably show a lot of improvements in congestion. Then we have lifestyle issues. Our autonomous vehicle is going to encourage us to live farther and farther from cities. We moved to suburbs some 20, 30 years ago, and the move has been sort of to encourage people to come back to the urban areas, to reduce congestion, pollution, and our environmental damages, and to have a more sustainable environment. Is this going to now sort of motivate us to go and move farther from the cities, and what are the impacts of that, and how is that going to impact the environmental issues that are of concern right now? Again, our preliminary results for another project that I'm working on is showing that we don't see much of environmental benefits or fuel savings as part of at least level 1 and 2.